David Riccio, sometimes written as David Riccio, David Rizzo, was an Italian courtier, born close to Turin, a descendant of an ancient and noble family still living in Piedmont, the Riccio Count di San Paolo e Solbrito, who rose to become the private secretary of Mary, Queen of Scots. Mary's husband, Lord Darnley, is said to have been jealous of the friendship, because of rumours that he had impregnated Mary, and joined in a conspiracy of Protestant nobles, led by Patrick Ruthven, 3rd Lord Ruthven, to murder him. The murder was the catalyst for the downfall of Darnley, and it had serious consequences for Mary's subsequent career. Introduction to court. Rizzio went first from Turin to the court of the Duke of Savoy, then at Nice. However, finding no opportunities for advancement there, he found means to get himself admitted into the train of the Count de Moretto in 1561, who was about to lead an embassy to Scotland. The court in Scotland had no employment for Rizzio, and dismissed him. He ingratiated himself with the Queen's musicians, whom she had brought with her from France. James Melville, a personal friend of Rizzio, said that Her Majesty had 3 valets in her chamber who sung 3 parts, and wanted a bass to sing the 4th part. Thus, he was drawn into her court. Further advancement. He was considered a good musician and an excellent singer, which first brought him to the attention of the cosmopolitan young queen. Towards the end of 1564, having grown wealthy under her patronage, he became the Queen's secretary for relations with France. After the previous occupant of the post retired there, this post attracted a quarterly salary of £20. Ambitious, a Catholic and a foreigner to boot, Rizzio, it was felt, was too close to the Queen. Rumours became rife that Mary was having an adulterous affair with Rizzio. Murder. David Rizzo was stabbed 56 times on the 9th of March 1566 by Lord Darnley and his friends. He was accused of leaving Mary, Queen of Scots, pregnant. Background. Jealousy precipitated his murder in the Queen's presence, in her supper chamber in the palace of Holyrood House, after the royal guards were quickly overpowered and the palace was turned over to the control of the rebels. Queen as witness. The Queen was 7 months pregnant at the time. Having burst into the Queen's private dining room, the rebels, led by Patrick Ruthven, 3rd Lord Ruthven, demanded Rizzio be handed over. The Queen refused. Rizzio then hid behind Mary but was nevertheless seized and stabbed to death in the presence of the Queen. Murder and burial. After this violent struggle, Rizzio was stabbed an alleged 56 times, before being thrown down the main staircase and stripped of his jewels and fine clothes. He was buried within 2 hours in the cemetery of Holyrood. Buchanan and Daniel state that shortly afterwards his body was removed by the Queen's orders and deposited in the sepulchre of the Kings of Scotland, a measure most impolitic, as it strengthened the previous reports of her familiarity with him. Rumours were thrown around as to why this happened to Rizzio. Most claimed Darnley was jealous. Aftermath. Robert Melville arrived in Edinburgh from London and reported back to Elizabeth and Cecil on the aftermath of the murder. He noted that Morton, Lord Ruthven, and Lord Lindsay had fled, and William Maitland of Leathington, the Clerk Register James Balfour, the Justice Clerk John Bellenden, and some gentlemen of Lothian who were suspected of having knowledge of the plan had fled. Mary had escaped from Edinburgh to Dunbar Castle. Rizzio's brother, Joseph, arrived in Scotland with Michel de Castelnau and was appointed secretary in David's place by the 25th of April 1566. Joseph and an Italian colleague, Joseph Lutini, had some trouble over coins taken from the Queen's purse, and in April 1567 he was accused and acquitted with Bothwell of Darnley's murder. Legacy and memorial. David Rizzio's career was remembered and referred to by Henry IV of France, mocking the pretension of James VI of Scotland to be the Scottish Solomon. He remarked that he hoped he was not David the Fiddler's son, alluding to the possibility that Rizzio, not Darnley, fathered King James, whilst it has been alleged that Rizzio is buried at Canongate Kirkyard, Edinburgh. This is highly unlikely, as this would have required reinterment of a Catholic with no living friends in a Protestant graveyard 120 years after his death. It is more likely and logical that he lies in an unmarked grave in the graveyard attaching Holyrood Abbey. The Protestant historian George Buchanan wrote in 1581 that David was first buried outside the door of the abbey, and then Mary arranged for him to be buried in the tomb of her father James V and Madeleine of France within. As Buchanan described this circumstance as reflecting badly on the Queen while his book was at the printers, a friend James Melville tried to get Buchanan to rewrite the passage, fearing that Mary's son James VI would suppress the whole book. Buchanan asked his cousin Thomas Buchanan, a schoolmaster in Stirling, if he thought the story was true, and the cousin agreed. The story was published. Popular culture. Rizzio is played by John Carradine in the 1936 RKO picture Mary of Scotland, directed by John Ford, and by Ian Home in Mary, Queen of Scots, the 1972 Universal picture directed by Charles Jarrett. Rizzio's life and death are a key plot element in Caleb Carr's Sherlock Holmes story The Italian Secretary. Holmes vocally dismissing the idea that Rizzio was ever anything more than entertainment. Rizzio is a character in Queen's Own Fool, a historical novel by Jane Yolen and Robert J. Harris. The Takers in Hand. Thomas Randolph listed these men as participants in Rizzio's murder: Earl of Morton, Patrick Ruthven, 3rd Lord Ruthven, Patrick Lindsay, 6th Lord Lindsay, William Maitland of Leathington, Master of Ruthven, John Cockburn, Laird of Ormiston, the Laird of Horton, William Sinclair of Herdmanston, John Crichton, Laird of Brunston, the Laird of Whittingham, the Laird of Lochleven, the Laird of Elphinstone, Patrick Murray, Andrew Kerr of Fordhamside, son-in-law of John Knox, William Tweedy of Drumelsia, Adam Tweedy of Drever, with the preachers John Knox and John Craig.